Hey guys, it's Nicole Eaton with the Rock Your Soul book and podcast, where we talk about how to hack your mindset, grow your intuition, and live your best life. You can support this podcast by subscribing, leaving a positive review, and screenshot and sharing on social media. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome back to another episode. This episode is part 2 with Nick Brown. This is an incredible interview with him as he deep dives into getting vulnerable as a male, being able to use your vulnerability in healing and rebirth, coming out of anxiety to build the life that you're excited about. It's such a good episode, so you're going to want to listen. He's a fitness coach who's offering one-on-one online fitness and nutrition coaching that comes with meal plans, private messaging, weekly check-ins, and more. And right now he's offering for the next 10 people who sign up 50% off the entire package. So you can't beat that. Make sure to check it out at greatlyfitness.com and enjoy the episode. Introduce yourself and tell me a little bit of your story. What's your background?
Gotcha. All right. So my name is Nick. From Massachusetts. If you can't tell from the accent, it's usually the first thing that people pick up on. I'm a personal trainer, certified in nutrition specialty as well. But really, I'm somebody that wants to help everybody in the world besides just personal training. I learned early on that personal training was people would just talk a lot too. People just wanted to go and kind of have talk therapy in their personal training. And at that time, I'm looking back saying this now. At that time, I would kind of just be like, yeah, this person just wants to talk and I just want to work them out. But looking back, it's so much more to it because I would do the same thing as I went to work out, as many people do, more so for my mental health than even my physical. So my background kind of came from there. I was always an athlete. I grew up as an athlete. Which is actually going back in time where my anxiety first took place. I did the Y ladder, as I was mentioning earlier, and where my anxiety really started to take control of where I allowed my anxiety to control my life, I was 16 and going for baseball tryouts at high school, 15, whatever. And I was always just used to being really good and not really having to try because I was just always on a team. And my dream, like many kids, was a baseball player. But it was actually a dream that was achievable. If I kept putting work into it, it was an achievable dream to really make it. And I went to the gym that day. We had indoor tryouts because it was raining. And I went to the school gym door. I looked through the window and saw everybody warming up, and something just hit me and I just froze and I shut down. And it took me what felt like an eternity, was probably 2 minutes to be in reality. And I looked at the door and I walked away. And that was the first day that I let my anxiety win. And ever since then, for the longest time, until I was 35 probably now, my anxiety ruled my life. And that was just my identity. That was my past. That was everything until, like I said, I had a panic attack, which it's crazy to think. And you kind of mentioned it's great how a panic attack can help you see the other side of it. I tell people that I'm I wouldn't change it for the world. I thought I was having a panic attack. I thought I was having a heart attack, and felt like I was literally going to die in any moment. I wouldn't change it for the world because it happened for a reason. I was exactly where I was supposed to be in that moment, and it taught me what I needed to change my life with. And from that day forward, I found more, manifestations and energy and reading and journaling and God, and just everything that felt so foreign to me became the center of my universe. And one of my biggest messages that I always like to share to people is, as difficult as it is to step outside of your bubble and kind of open your mind, I promise you that when you're in a rut, when you're feeling stuck, no matter what, if you just open your eyes and open your mind a little bit, something is going to show you you're not gonna know what it is. It could be the most random of things that shows you what your life can look like and really is. And then next thing you know, you're living a completely different life. And it's just crazy too, because before I like really gave myself to God, and about a month ago now, I was baptized and all of that, I was completely reborn. Like I literally said, I'm 35 years old and I'm just starting life now.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. Like, and I've read it in books where it's like, look at the people who didn't start their life, like they weren't successful until they were 65. Like, there's no timeline on life. It doesn't matter. And that's one of my biggest lessons to teach people is you might have goals. You might have a timeline of, I need to have this, this, and this by this day and time. It's probably not going to happen.
Your timeline is so much different than the universe's timeline. To like have intentions, have goals, but also flow with the ability to like learn about yourself along the way. And like I said earlier, sometimes you have goals and you get there and you're like, this isn't
yeah.
feel how I thought it was feel. Yeah.
It's about not fighting back. And I a lot of our intuition from generational, from whatever it might be, we want to fight back against the universe. We don't, because it's not our way, right? Like we don't think it's our way. Well, the universe is showing us this, but that's not me. That's not my plan. That's not what I thought was going to happen. So we fight back. And usually when you fight back against the universe, it's going to fight back harder than you could fight. And you're not going to like what comes. So it's about learning to, as crazy and cliche as it is, go with the flow, because that flow is the energy of the universe, is what we're really talking about. That cliche saying of going with the flow. It's not just like whatever. It's go with the flow of the energy of the universe, because it's going to lead you to where you want to be and where you should be.
Well, and I think too, like, again, we were talking earlier about being like in that external, and when we come back in, we get those directions.
Oh,
But
yeah.
when we're trying to force our own desires too hard, or we're trying to appease a family member or try to impress somebody or whatever we're trying to do, if it's not wholeheartedly us and the best reflection of us, the universe will reroute you, or you just won't feel great when you get there. It's really going to depend on like what the honesty and truth behind that is. But I love that. I love that you found that in it. I love the idea of a rebirth, because you were talking about just that extreme anxiety and being able to like, I don't know, just change and decide, okay, that is something I deal with. That is not who I am. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the best and most powerful separation anybody can make.
100%. And I mean, like I said, I've seen people go through things, you know, read it, heard it, whatever it might be. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, they're lucky. They're whatever. It's like, no, like luck is a thing in the world, in our life. Yes, there's fortunate timing, sure, whatever. But like 95%, probably more, it's not luck. Like it's really not. I understand it's easy to say, well, they're lucky. No, chances are they put the work in that you didn't understand, that you didn't want to do, that you didn't whatever. So to you, they're lucky. To them, it's like, you didn't see all the shit that I went through. Like, and that's what every podcast that I listen to, when there's a big person who made it, they typically say, yeah, the people only see you when you're up, and they don't see all of the struggles you go through. They just see you at your, oh, I made $1 million today. That's all they see. They don't see what it took to get to that $1 million.
Well, and you know, I'm reading Ed Millett's book right now, and like he is like an idol of mine. I don't know. Do you follow him at all?
Yeah. No, I have him and I forget the other. There's a few people that I follow. Like I have, if you saw my book list, like I said, I haven't gotten. There's just too many books.
He just talks about it, and one of the big things he talks about is imposter syndrome. And it's just like, okay, if Ed Millett has imposter syndrome, and if Ed Millett's standing on stage, inside of his head, he's still thinking, am I qualified to be here? Right. Then it's okay for me to have those feelings as long as I push through them, you know? And I think that's the power in recognizing that everybody has anxieties that they're dealing with. Everybody has their own family stuff that they're dealing with. Everybody has their own maybe trauma that they've got to move through. And in the curse of social media is that we miss those darker parts that everybody on earth is going through because of these advertising. I talked about in my podcast, I had a really, my sister was in a very violent relationship for 20 years. And he recently committed suicide after putting her in the hospital. And so I'm obviously coming on TikTok, and I'm coming on my podcast, and I'm coming all this stuff and preaching all this positivity, and also really managing my relationships with my family that were a little crazy during that time period, managing her and her children that came to live with me, for like managing having to like actually tell her that had happened because she didn't know, and I somehow found out first. So it was just like, there's all this stuff that while I'm still living in my purpose and doing these things to help and heal, that I'm also working on healing and working on boundaries and working on stuff that the fixer in me that like still wants to not visit. And so we just can't really take anything at face value, and understanding that there's not one person who totally has it together.
Oh, never.
Has all the answers. There's no nutrition person who eats perfectly clean every day of the week unless they have like a eating disorder, like there's just so much to unpack in a human that I don't want us to forget. So I love how vulnerable you're willing to be about how bad that anxiety got, because people need to hear it.
Yeah. No, it's the biggest thing. Like one of the biggest things that got me into doing this is just, I got to the point of learning what sharing, like the power of sharing has. And it actually really started, I had like kind of dove into podcast a little bit at this point a couple years ago, but when I was going through my bouts of depression, and I was really in it to the point where luckily, and I've said it before, like luckily I never had it in me to like take my own life, but I at least got to the point of understanding that feeling of understanding like, hey, I can see how person XYZ took their life. Like when you feel this way, because you don't feel any, like it's awful. Like what's the point of living? And for me, I went through all of that, and I had a friend who intuition. So I knew, like, it was a friend of a friend, but like obviously we were now friends, and I just knew like he's been through depression. Like he lives with depression, and he's been worse. Like you could just pick up on things. And I was like, what I felt a lot, I could see, like, even just in his facial expressions, sometimes you could like feel it. And I'm like, I could talk to this person, I bet. And I don't think it would be an awkward conversation. I don't think, like, some people might, like, if I went up to a random person who never had depression, they're going to be like, what the fuck are you talking? Like, what do you want? But I just had that intuition where I knew, like, I need to talk to somebody who gets it. I have a feeling this dude gets it. Yeah. And we were just shooting the shit one day at like a little like get together, and we were like off to the side, and like I didn't like jump right into it. We were shooting the shit, and then we kind of dove into a little more serious conversation. I was like, hey, by the way, like, and I just kind of put it out there, and he's like, yeah, I've been there. I did this. I felt this. I felt that. And next thing I know, it's like an hour-long conversation. And I walked away from that conversation like, holy shit. Like, I'm not the only one who feels this way. My depression came, I had a stroke when I was 30. So my depression came from that. His depression came from family things, his dad dying at a young age, whatever. But we both had depression. We're both the same age. We're both, men. We're both into sports. We're both like into the same thing. So we had enough similarities to put it together. And at that moment is when I really realized, and what really led me to wanting to share and be an open book, is we're all alike more than you think. Like, we all, in the moment especially, we think nobody else has this, nobody else feels this way, nobody else whatever. And it's like, again, your background, your story might be different, but some of the pieces of that puzzle are the exact same that anybody else can relate to in some sort of way. And when I learned that, is what really led me into all of this. And like you said, being vulnerable, like, I have nothing to hide. I got to the point where I didn't want to talk about things because I was worried about, okay, what's person A gonna think? What's person B gonna say? And I would always worry and whatever. But now I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I love myself. I went through shit that I had to go through for whatever reason. I learned things. I go through things, whatever it is, it's for my purpose. I'm good with it. Like, I'm at peace with everything that's happened. I'm at peace with myself, and I'm good. And I'm not, like you said, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Like, I'm not whatever, but I'm good with myself. So if you have a problem with me sharing, and I've had feedback where people were just like, oh, I had a TikTok person the other day. I shared something, and this kid who's hiding behind a fake profile picture, he's like, nobody wants to see your face. And I was like, okay, like, and that's one of the things too, is I shifted my mindset to like just respond with positivity, because killing with positivity and they can't handle it.
Absolutely.
And that's what I did. I was like, I was like, oh, whatever, like, sorry you feel that way, but thanks for commenting. And he's like, nobody wants to look at you. And I was like, sorry you feel that way, you can keep scrolling. And then he said something else, and I was like, listen, I'm just gonna pray for you, like, that's it. And then he never responded, and I was like, yeah, done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the TikTok trolls are. But I think the one thing also, even just on TikTok, is that I usually receive a lot more positive than negative, and anybody who's coming at me with negative energy has nothing to do with me.
Yep.
But yeah, I used to believe that sharing like this dark history within myself made it so I wasn't as qualified, or like
Okay, I get
people
that.
would, be like, oh, how do I trust her if she's
Right.
her own stuff or whatever? And then I
Well, she
realized,
has depression. How do I listen to her? And it's like,
yeah. So like for me, it took a turn when I realized that I would be less qualified to deal with people super depressed if I don't know what that feels like. Like,
yep.
if you've never been sitting in that dark
Yeah.
hole in your heart and just like looking around like, what the fuck is the point? Like, you have no room trying to help anybody if you have not been there. So actually it qualifies me more that I've been dark, and I know what the dark and the light both look like, and I can tell you walk with you to get you there. Like, that is the part that I don't know, like, if we can move and shift out of being a world where we just judge people because we were so scared of our own stuff, that I think we could be a really powerful, I think the world could be a much more powerful place if we were all really honest, open, and loving towards each other.
If people weren't so judging, and I don't even like, yes, judging others, but it's ultimately the people that I feel like that judge others, they're judging themselves the most. Like, you're judging, I did it. I would judge myself far worse than I would judge other people, or that other people could judge me. You're always going to be your own biggest critic. Like, that's just how it is. So nobody else, like, it doesn't matter. So like for me, when I worked out and I was at my like peak, like, I looked good and I hated myself. And any outside person would look at me like, dude, you're fucking crazy. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I was like shred, and I'm like, nah, I'm fat, I'm this. Like, I also had body dysmorphia, which is a real thing in the fitness world, even if you're healthy. But it's just, I was a bigger judge of myself, and everybody else would be like, what are you talking about? Like, you look fine. Like, I think I was like 7% body fat. I wouldn't even take off my shirt in the summer, and it's like 100 degrees outside. I'm like wearing a shirt, and like, I'm like, no, I just wasn't comfortable because I judged myself. I didn't look good enough to myself. And it's the same way with your mental health. I mean, that was obviously kind of ties to mental health, but no matter what it is, you're going to judge yourself more. So if we ease up on ourselves and learn to just be like, hey, I have flaws, so does this person. Every single person has a flaw. Nobody is perfect. Everybody goes through a dark time. Sure, maybe my dark is 95% dark and yours is 50% dark. Who cares? That's one of the biggest things that I went through too, that I had to learn the hard way, is don't compare the dark times. Like, you can relate to them and use the experiences, which I love that you mentioned you're more qualified, because that's how I see it, is you can learn from the book, but like, personal life experiences is where it really comes from. Like, that's where you really come from. Because like you said, when you're helping that person in the dark time, you're not just going off of the words you read in a book. You're like, hey, I've been there. Like, I feel you. And that's part of it. It's learning that everybody has their own things, and that if you're not so hard on yourself, you're not going to be so hard on others. And we can all just come together and say, hey, you've been through some shit. Me too. Let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya in a sense.
Well, and like that's almost that form of acceptance is being able to say, okay, this is what's happening. We're all in it together. It's okay. And I think that like that's the biggest battle with mental health that I see is that people are fighting themselves because they don't want to feel the way that they already feel. When we can just say, okay, I accept that I feel this way. I don't have to know why, and I accept that I feel this way. That's like such a great neutralizer. But I'm curious like how you worked yourself out of that
Okay.
piece with like body dysmorphia.
So I'm mostly there. I'm gonna say that's why I took a second to answer. Because if I just jumped right in and said I'm perfectly fine, that's a lie. Um, Honestly, I just found the empathy for myself. Like I mentioned earlier, I just got to the point where I almost, this is one of the times where it was actually good to listen to the outside noise. So like I mean, there is moments where you should listen to outside noise, in constructive criticism in a sense. For the most part, you probably want to tune out the outside noise, but this was one of it where people would always say, dude, like you're so hard on yourself, like, whatever. And I just, no, I also have OCD. So I think some of it has to do with like perfection in my head.
Yeah.
Um, and I just like, even at my best, I wasn't perfect enough, which there's no such thing.
Right.
Like, there's just no such thing. But in my eyes, it was like, no, I can go more. Like I was I wasn't really training at this point, but like I would have been the trainer that tells you everything, but then is doing something completely like I was outworking any diet. Like I ate healthy, but like I was working out so much that I could have eaten 10 pizzas in a day and it wouldn't have even mattered because I was just outworking everything. Um, I just I just got so into it. But the way I really worked through it was just looking myself in the mirror for one, and I used to nitpick everything. And I did it again, but with a different mindset. So when I used to nitpick everything, I used to look in the mirror and say, and look at me and say, okay, a little bit of fat here, a little bit of fat there. That needs to go. That needs to go. I need to train this muscle a little bit more, whatever, and nitpick everything and hone in on every single aspect that I needed to train harder in. And that made it worse, obviously, because I'm always going to find something to pick at. So
Right.
then I shifted my mindset recently and I said, well, wait a minute, let me do the same thing with a different mindset. Like, these are my flaws, but like now I know I have the ability and the skill set and the knowledge to work on these things if I really want to. Do I want to get back to 7% body fat? Do I want to do all these things? Is that sustainable? Is that really what's going to make me happy? Like, what am I doing it for? And that was one of the biggest things is why was I so obsessed with looking the way I wanted to look?
Yeah.
The external validation for the most part. Like, yes, I appreciated the hard work I had to put in for it. I appreciated everything like that. But a lot of it, probably more than half of the reason I was doing it was if I post a shirtless picture on Instagram, it's going to get me more likes.
Yeah.
I'm going to attract more girls. Like in the broad spectrum, that's what it was, is the hotter I looked, the more girls I could get.
Yeah.
Like it was that simple.
Yeah.
And it was such a stupid way of thinking, but we all do it at some point. We all have that thing. And then recently I got to the point where I was like, dude, like, you know what you can do to get there. Like I've been having my fun with food for a little bit while. And it's like, yeah, I'm not maybe like I have a couple pounds. Like if I really want to be to where like I'm really, really good with myself, 5 pounds and I'm good. Like 5 pounds of fat and I'm good. And for me, I know like that's a month, not even. Like I know, and that's what helped me with my mindset there of getting over that body dysmorphia is learning to be easier on myself and saying like, you know what you have to do. If you want to get to X level, you know what is there, you know the work to put in. Stop being so hard on yourself. And sometimes that's easier said than done. But it really got to the point of I'm like, analyzing my life is okay. I'm eating whatever the heck I want to eat. Yes, health reasons, I should probably eat a little bit better just to be healthier. But like at that moment, I'm like, I'm eating whatever I want. I still look, and this isn't being like cocky. I'm just saying, like, I still look better than 95% of the population, like the average population, right? So it's like, if you look at everything out there, it's like you're not doing so bad. Like you really don't look that bad. You're not obese. You're not overweight. You can go do you can go for a run. You can go play basketball. You can take your dog for whatever I want to do in life. I'm capable of doing with ease. So I'm like, if I'm able to live my life the way I want to live my life, why am I going to nitpick over having a couple extra pounds of fat on me? That honestly, like, and I have friends that are like, dude, you're crazy. So, that's where it kind of helped me get over it, was listening to people, because it was actually constructive criticism at that point. Like they're not trying to gaslight me. They're literally saying like, dude, you look fine. Like you look fine, and understanding like, hey, you really you look fine, dude. Like you look better than normal. You look better than average. Like, the necessary steps, and putting all that together, just being easier on myself. It's taken such a weight off of me as well, because I got to the point where I hated the gym because it became my life. Yeah. I went to the gym 3 times a day. Like I would go 2 summers ago, well, 3 summers ago almost now because of the pandemic, but I would go to a friend's house on a Saturday night, play cornhole, have a bonfire, 2 a.m. They're all going home. I mean, they're all drunk. I don't drink, but they're all going home, going to bed. I went to the gym.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck do I have to go to the gym for at 2 a.m?
Yeah.
Literally to burn more calories. Like that was my reason, was to burn more calories so I could lose more fat. And it's like, that's not sustainable, for one. And then number 2, like when you get really low body fat, it sucks. It sucks.
Well, and I love that you had the question. I love the question, what's under the surface. That's like my favorite question, is that when I'm doing something, I'm like, why do I feel pressured to do this? Where's this pressure even coming from? But I love that you got to the root of the issue of like, okay, if I do this, then it equals acceptance or external validation, or maybe a partner, or like I have to do these things to be loved and accepted. And so when you break it down and get to the root of why you're doing the things that you're doing, I think that's such a powerful place to be, because then you can ask yourself, does it even matter? What is more important? Right. What is an end goal? Where's the actual intention? I think that especially with like eating and working out is such a trigger, right? It's such a big thing for so many people. And I think that, I know for myself personally, I've had to really look at the intention of why I'm, doing this. And I think I had mentioned earlier, I had like a stint where all I did was 80-day obsession. It's a very intensive workout program, and it jacked my body up pretty badly, because once I stopped doing that, like my body was like, wait, we're not doing that anymore. So I had to really get into the intention of like, okay, why did I start doing that in the first place? I started the first time because I wanted to be healthy and commit to myself and commit to something that was more challenging. I kept doing it because the intention changed, right? Sometimes we start doing something for one reason.
100%.
The intention changed, because then it became, well, if I don't look this way, then I'm overweight, or if I don't look this way, then I'm not happy with myself, or if I it became attached to not the health of it and what good things it had to produce for me, but that it was connected with this idea that I had to do it to continue to be enough or look a certain way, or whatever the case might be. And again, I think that really just did a number, like having the extreme of the dieting and working out. I just think it really did a number on like my entire system. And I definitely like hear you, but I think getting to the root of the cause and asking yourself, has the intention changed? Like, what am I still doing this for? I know even with TikTok, like I started off, I just wanted to share the knowledge that was really important to me. And then I found myself changing the content to appease what I thought people wanted. And so I had to be really intentional about shifting that back. And so I think it's important that when you're doing anything in life, whether it's school or gym or social media content or whatever it is, you have to ask yourself, like, what is my intention? What is it all for? And how do I honor myself and what I really need and take care of me in the process?
Authenticity. Like I've had the same issues where I was like, I don't want to change. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, yeah, sure, getting more views helps like a business potential, right? But like, I don't want to, it's not true to me, so I'm not going to do it. Like, I've had it where the same thing. I wanted to try other things, and I was just like, wait, I gotta reel this back in. Like, this just doesn't feel right. Like you're making it, and you're like, why am I making this? Like, why am I doing it this way? And it's like, well, it's not me. And
Yeah.
that's where I've been with everything. That's part of what got me there, is when I got to this mindset of like, what kind of material do I want to share? Like, I took a sabbatical from social media because I hated it. I have an old school mindset. Like, I hate social media in the grand scheme of it. Like, I hate the negative side of it, I should say, because of
Yeah.
what it can bring on. But obviously now I've got to the point where like I understand it as the tool that it is and all of that. But I looked and I was like, what is me being shred have to do? Like, who does that help? Like, that helps my ego. That's it. Literally. That's it.
Yeah.
Me having a six pack, posting it on Instagram and getting a few likes and comments or whatever. What does that do? If there's not really any context to it or anything like that, what does that do besides boost my ego? And then I got all through everything else, and I got to this point where I'm sharing everything that I share now, and I'm like, this is so much more validating, more purposeful in a sense, because now I'm sharing things that people can relate to. Like, what,
Yeah.
maybe 1% of the people that saw my Instagram are going to be able to relate to it. Like, now I talk about life. Anybody can relate to life in some way. So that also helped me with my mindset a little bit too.
And when we're posting from that ego place, we're also not giving the real people who need to see what we're doing and how we're doing it a chance to connect with us, because we're creating, and maybe that creates people scrolling by who don't like you because they feel insecure about their body. Like, it's kind of like a catch 22 of like, what do I ultimately want to get from this? And is this my ego or my soul? And how do I share more of my soul? And maybe it is, listen, like, I'm here for great, if you look cute in
Right.
photos, posting
Right.
that,
Right.
just finding that balance of like, what am I doing this for?
Yeah. There's a difference of like, it was probably 50-50 for me of like, hey, look at me for attention. And then 50% of like, hey, look at the work I put in, rather than 100% of like, hey, maybe you don't want to reach this level, but this is what putting in the work and effort does. Like, like you said, sharing it in a different way, maybe. And I'm all, like you said, I'm all for, I feel like women do it a lot more. Women are really good at this, where it's like, I put on an outfit, I feel damn good, I look damn good. Like, this is getting posted on Instagram today. Like, I feel like women do that a little bit more. Like, y'all are better at that. Obviously we have our egos probably, but even that, I've had times where I like to, get dressed, and I was like, yeah, I like this outfit today. It's going on the gram, like whatever, because you're being authentic. You're sharing. You're not posting some staged photo and all. It's like, no, I'm having a good day. I feel good in what I'm doing, so I'm going to share this. And maybe somebody who sees it says, you know what, like, look at Nicole go. Like, yeah, I can do that too, and I'm going to do it. Like, that's the real meaning behind it.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think the intention of like behind whatever you're doing is so important. And I think it radiates, like the energy
Oh
of
yeah,
intention and authenticity radiates, no matter if it's a six-pack picture posted from ego and
yep.
insecurity, or posted with confidence, and like, we're allowed to own our shit. Like, we're allowed to
Oh
own
yeah,
how good we look, or like how hard
right.
of work we put in. So I think that's a really powerful place to be. I want to just quickly switch back,
Yeah.
because you talk a lot about grounding. I know you've dealt with anxiety. How did you even stumble upon I feel like a lot of people just don't even know about grounding. Like, it's not a common thing. So
um,
sorry with that.
that's actually you're the first person that's actually asked me that question in that way. People just say like, how do you ground? What do you do? Um, I'm actually not sure where I stumbled across it. Yoga. I know
Mm,
now. Yoga. So I would watch a couple different channels on YouTube to learn yoga from there. And I remember, honestly, it's probably one of those seedlings that got planted a long time ago that just kind of lingered in the back of my mind. And then, other things kind of sprouted that seedling. So I would watch, it's actually a couple, and they do both like men, male, female, unisex yoga, like powerful, easy, like all sorts of levels. And at that time, when I used to watch them, they're like big spiritual people. Like they live off, land and all that. And I remember them talking a little bit about like, feet to the ground and bare feet. And we like, they live bare feet and everything. And then recently, honestly, I think it might've been TikTok where I came across it again, where I was scrolling and curating my feed how I wanted to see my feed, which is, a thing I've talked about before, like definitely doing that. And at that point, I think it was just TikTok videos. People were talking about energy healing, chakras, and all of that stuff, like we've mentioned before. And a few different people were talking about, hey, here's some ways to kind of like balance your energy and reset your energy, like just touch grass. And I was like, let me try it. And then like the first couple days, I'll be honest, I went outside and I'm like, the fuck am I doing? What is this? Like, because I'm like, what, you're supposed to feel some magical thing? Like I'm touching the grass, like nothing's going, like what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
But after like probably like a week or so of doing it, and it just became a quick routine, like I said earlier, where I noticed my mornings are a little different if I don't have that energy from the universe. Now, if I don't touch grass, if I don't take a walk in the morning, like something just doesn't feel right throughout the day. And that's really where it started. Was, like I said, I would say the seedling was planted from watching yoga in the past, and then TikTok is what really got me into the energy and grounding more. Is as the more I looked into, like, because I was looking at more natural ways of like, working through my anxiety and mental health and all of that. And obviously you see a lot of energy and healing and chakras and all of that on TikTok if you curate it that way. And I was like, yeah, let me try it. Like I've tried plenty of things. I've tried breath work from TikTok people, manifestations, all of it. TikTok, it's like I said, I used to hate social media because of what I was seeing on it, because it's what I curated it to be. The second I shifted it, I'm like, dude, there's some great stuff out there to learn from. That's what got me. I mean, like you know, everything like that. Like that's how I came across you. That's how I come across the people that I connect with now. Is 95% of it is TikTok. Like I go on 5-10 minutes, I'll search hashtags or click some photo videos, some comments, whatever, and look through, and I'm like, all right, I like this person, like let me see what they have, and I dive into it, and next thing I know, I'm learning something. Like that, my purpose of social media, of really, I mean, anything that I do in life, but use social media for me as a tool. I use it for learning, networking too, but like learning.
Yeah. I think TikTok is so a lot of people still categorize it as like the dance, and I'm like, you guys are out. You are missing out. There's like, it's authenticity, it's learning. It's like I've learned more off TikTok than probably anywhere else, honestly. Like little life hacks, little things that I didn't know.
Everything.
I love it. And that people are willing to dig for that I'm not willing to dig for, like just stuff like that. So and what is your favorite way to get grounded? I know you mentioned putting your feet in the grass. Is there anything else that you do regularly?
So my two things is one, the main staple of it is feet to ground. I'm usually like 5 minutes, 10 minutes in the morning. I have a very, again, I'll know if my day doesn't start the way that I have it routine and planned out, my whole day is just a mess after that. So once I get up, I brush my teeth, drink a glass of water. The first thing I do. I read a chapter in the Bible, and then I do a quick like 10-minute morning mobility just to kind of loosen up the body a little bit. And then right after that, I'm outside. As long as it's not like dumping rain like it was yesterday, I'm outside in the sun, in the grass, dirt, doesn't even matter. Who cares? Wipe your feet when you're done if they're dirty. 5-10 minutes, I literally just finish out a couple stretches there. That's kind of another way that I got myself into it. Is, again, like we mentioned earlier, manifestation, like you think it's this and that, like it doesn't have to be boring. You can make it what you want it to be. So I tell a lot of people, I'm like, if you don't want to just stand there, walk around, stretch, whatever you want to do, just get your bare feet to ground. So that's my number one. And then number two is very similar to you. It's taking walks. More so for me, it's nature. I love little hikes and things like that. And then my dog is obsessed with it. So for me, it's grounding, actual earth, feet to earth. And then the second, like 2A or whatever you want to call it, 2A, 2B, 1A, 1B. I need coffee. Um, it's my dog. Like, yeah, it's getting outside with my dog. So I mean, obviously, if you don't have one, just getting outside in general. But for me personally, it's getting with my dog. He just, I don't know, seeing the look on his face and just the joy that I've learned a lot from my dog, funny enough, and dogs in general. Is just the way to happiness in my life was through my dog, a lot of it, because I look at him and I'm like, I let him off the leash and he runs and he's the happiest person in the world, like happiest thing in the world. I'm like, dude, you're just running through the grass. Like, what's so great about that? So that's my other way of grounding, is just anything outside with my dog.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Where can people connect with you, work with you?
Yeah. So right now, if you want fitness coaching, anything like that, it's gritleyfitness.com. So GRITLEY fitness.com. And that'll link everything there. And then it's Instagram is Gritley _.
Perfect. Well, I'm really grateful that you reached out to me to connect. This has been like the most fun conversation, and I think people are going to get a lot from it on all ends.
I agree.
Thank you so much for listening to the Rock Your Soul book and podcast. Take a moment to book a one-on-one session with me or purchase my trainings at NicoleEaton.com. Join the Rock Your Soul Facebook group or follow me on Instagram at NicoleEaton.xo. And if you loved this podcast, don't forget to share it. Thank you.